Do you dream of being acquired? Most construction companies do, or at least they think about it, but very few ever are. And why is that? Because buyers don't just care about your backlog or your revenue. They care about your culture, your client relationships, and the quality of your succession plan. In today's episode, I talk with Caruso, CEO of Cross Management Corporation, a mid-sized New York City-based GC that became attractive enough to Shimizu, a $14 billion Japanese contractor, to take a majority stake. We dig into how Anne built culture, delighted clients, and planned succession in a way that made her company irresistible to outside buyers. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. And welcome to Construction Genius.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Please introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am Anne Caruso. I am the corporate counsel and CEO for Cross Management Corporation. We're a mid-sized GC in New York City, and we recently went through a big merger with a massive Japanese company. And we're just working through that right now.
Excellent. Excellent. So something in your title there tells me something about your background. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the role of being the CEO of your company.
Sure. It's been a long journey, for sure. I started with Cross Management when it was a very, very new, very tiny company in 2004. I was in law school at night and working at a law firm. And my brother was one of the people starting the company with his partner. I came in to help them during the day with all of the operational things such as insurances and contracts and billing and things of that nature. Because while they were both construction experts, they weren't necessarily the business side of things. So that's how I started. I finished law school. I was admitted in New York and New Jersey, and I decided to stay. So I've been there for 22 years already, almost 23 years.
Wow, that's great. Is your brother still involved in the business?
He is, yes.
And what's his role?
Well, he's the director of operations, and he's definitely involved in every project that we have, as well as Brian Sakanik, who is our CFO.
Okay, excellent. So that's very interesting. Tell us a little bit about the brother-sister dynamic. The reason I ask, one of my clients is a large GC in the Midwest, and they actually have a brother and sister who are co-presidents of the organization. They're a fifth-generation company. Tell us a little bit about that dynamic, what it's like working with your brother, how you guys navigate that sibling aspect.
He's been in the business for many years, more than I have. He started his career also with Brian at a very large New York City-based GC. So John and I, we're similar in a lot of ways, obviously raised in the same family. Different strengths for sure. And there's a bit of an age gap between us. So we have different ideas on things. But I think the three of us as a team for so many years, we've come to find where everyone lies in terms of risk management and ideas and how fast things need to be done. And we balance each other very well.
So tell us a little more about the process, about how you started in the business and came to become the CEO. Obviously, I understand your brother's running the operations. Sounds like Brian's taking care of the money. Why is it that you took the role of the CEO? What was the strategic logic behind that?
A lot of it was really succession planning. We had been doing the same thing for many years. When COVID came about, things got a little bit more, we were a little more introspective of what the future looked like, right? So we had always been a little bit averse to working outside of New York. I was very concerned about losing great New York City clients because we were working outside of the city, and maybe we wouldn't be as strong, right? Without that really good mechanism of control and involvement. And with COVID, we didn't really have a choice. So the city was very quiet. Our clients were asking us to expand outside of New York. We moved into Delaware. We moved into now Florida, working in Illinois, about to work in Ohio. So as these things were happening, the day-to-day things I definitely needed more support. right? So I needed to be able to think outside of the box and find ways to make things work. And in terms of succession planning, Brian and John are in their late 50s and looking towards the future. The Shimizu deal wasn't really something we were thinking about. And since I was taking on most of the CEO leadership role, it just came naturally. And actually, we had never really had it named a CEO in the past. We just kind of looked at them as partners, and I was the back of the house, contract and whatnot.
Yeah, interesting. So you mentioned Shimizu there. Tell us a little bit about that, because you've just gone through some sort of business acquisition or dynamic there. Can you explain that?
Yes. So over the past 10 years, we've been doing joint ventures with Shimizu Corp, specifically Shimizu North America,
Okay.
which is the Japanese company wholly owns SNA, which is in Atlanta. And they do a lot of work, mostly processing and industrial factory kind of construction in the States, the Southeast area. And they had some clients in New York that were Japanese clients that were looking to work with them. But they didn't have a large presence in New York City. So we would JV. They would almost act as an owner's rep on the project, also involved in the construction, but mostly on the client side of things. And we would act as the general contractor. And after a few of these went really well, we started to realize we worked very well together. They were interested in having more of a New York presence. And over the last 2 years, we worked with a Japanese client on Fifth Avenue to gut and rebuild their building was the first phase of it. Second was the Minimoto Candy Shop, who owns the building. We built their retail space, and now we're working together on 5 or 6 floors for the Nippon Club. So all working together, getting to know each other really well. The SNA team was reporting back to Tokyo that they found a partner that they were really interested in, and that's when the M&A started.
Okay. I've got a lot of questions about this. So I'm on the West Coast and I have clients on the East Coast. And I notice the cultural difference between East Coast and West Coast here in the United States. So, as soon as I pick up the phone, I can tell if someone's from the East Coast. You know what I mean? And,
Got it.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, what is it about the way that you guys operate that makes you a good partner for a company that's based in Japan or rooted in Japan? What is it about you that they find attractive?
That's a great question. I asked that myself when this all started, right? So yeah, when we started, I didn't really understand it that much. I didn't know what they were looking for, why they wouldn't just put their resources together and build something in New York. And then I got the opportunity to go to Tokyo and to meet with their leadership. And it was funny, after a couple of board meetings and then going out to dinner and getting to know each other, we realized we actually have this same kind of ideas on the culture, but also the same challenges. It all comes out at the end to be very, very similar. Finding people and finding good people who really want to stay with you. And that's something in Tokyo that they never really had a problem with, because people got their jobs and they retired from that same job.
Yeah.
But now the culture is starting to change. It's starting to evolve. And I think they really liked in us that our people stay with us. We have a family of people. One thing that they said was funny. I thought, in our pantry, we have a wall with pictures of everybody and their children and things like that. They had taken a picture of that and brought it back to Tokyo to show that we're not just business. We're in it together. And one thing about them that I love is, even in their tagline, it's building today, tomorrow's heritage. And they're really about the integrity, the honesty, the principle behind it. I thought we really all kind of linked together with.
That's excellent. I'm curious as to, often, you'll see these YouTube videos about how business is done in Japan, right? And it'll be the 2 hands on the card, the bow, all this kind of stuff. I'm not sure what the gender dynamics are there in terms of how women are perceived and all that kind of stuff. So was there any challenges you had there, or was there any adaptation that you had to do, or were people a little more open to you? Can you explain that?
Well, we definitely had to bring business cards, which is something we don't do in New York ever.
And you're sort of presenting them like this?
Yes, we tried. We tried our best. So after the merger, I was asked back for their global summit. And there were, I think, 70 professional CEOs or leaders from 16 countries. And there were 3 of us, 3 females in the room. So it's coming.
Yeah.
But I think that, I guess everywhere, right? The females, it's a male-dominated industry.
Sure.
But it's changing, and it's changing there. And they also recently acquired a company in Singapore that's also led by a female,
Oh, cool.
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a couple of things we're talking about here. Why did they decide to purchase an interest in your business as opposed to just continuing on with the JV? What was the value they saw in your business that they wanted to acquire? And the reason I'm asking this is because many general contractors struggle when they have a strategy of being acquired because they tend to overvalue their business relative to the market, whereas like a specialty contractor who may have a service arm to them has a better business logic for being purchased by someone from outside.
Sure. I think a lot of it comes down to that presence in New York. New York is attractive, right? It's exciting. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it had to do with that and being able to market us as a real team, not just a joint venture partner.
Yeah.
So becoming one is really important. And honestly, a lot of their clients, right, because they're a $14 billion company in Japan and all over Asia, a lot of their clients have headquarters in New York.
Yes.
Right. So the headquarters in Tokyo, the headquarters in New York, we put those two things together and we come forth as a real bond, not just people who work together.
Yeah.
I think it's much more marketable.
So going back to the dynamic of growing into your leadership role, obviously with your legal background, I'm assuming that you were responsible for handling the contracts and making sure that everything was in order there. As you got into more of a broader role, how did you show up with credibility, so to speak, in the construction world, not coming from boots on the ground, hands in the dirt kind of construction background?
That was a challenge. Certainly. It still is, because I am definitely much more the legal side of things than the builder. And I think when I started, that was one of the biggest challenges for me, was showing up, being prepared, understanding, asking a ton of questions before a meeting. So I felt like I knew all the answers in the meeting.
Yes.
And I think that's changed a lot over the years. I think now I feel very confident in my team that they can prepare me really well. I spend a lot more time on job sites than I ever did in the past.
Interesting.
So I get to see a lot more of it in real life. I spend an awful lot of time with estimating to see what's going into pricing, and just trying to take it all in as it comes, and really having the support of my team. And they know where my strengths are, but they also know how to help me, to support me with the subcontractors, with everyone else. And I think just being credible, just being honest has really helped me with that. And I'm surrounded by experts, right? So experts in every piece of the construction. And some people are better at some things than others. And some people are more mechanically inclined and more architecturally. And having all those people around and just learning how to find answers quickly, I think has helped tremendously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about Rockefeller, the guy who built Standard Oil, and he was basically a number cruncher, right? And so they asked him, how did you build this great oil company with all the technical situations that you have to face? And he said, I just hired people who were smarter than me, who were able to do those particular things. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the subcontractors, right? Yeah. So as a GC, we're a paper GC, we don't self-perform much work. So it's really about building those relationships with people you trust, and always having the phone number of somebody who will figure out the answer, and working together as a team.
All right, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now
back to the interview.
So it's interesting. You talked earlier about having the photograph of people with their families in your break room. How do you balance a family atmosphere with the need for performance?
It's challenging, especially in construction with the hours. The hours are really, they're tough, right? Young people working every weekend and Saturdays, hopefully not Sundays. And I think it really is, people fall into where they're going to succeed and where they're going to excel. And we try to be as flexible as possible when it comes to, your kid has a soccer game, you should be there. So let's support each other. And I can show up for this and you can show up for that. So it's really been just having a great team of people who work really well together. And there's always that balance in construction where we try to always put a younger person with an older person on a project for a couple reasons. One is the young guy is looking for the overtime and wants to work the hours.
Yeah.
Also, the younger guys are now coming out of school with engineering degrees and architecture degrees and excellent with technology, but don't necessarily know how to build something. So pairing them with somebody who might not know Procore as well, or might not know, and also wants to go home on Saturday, has been really good at keeping the team and learning. And from both sides, I think the construction, the veterans are learning new ways of doing things, quicker ways of doing things, and better computer skills and whatnot. Whereas the new generation coming in is really learning those skills that you can only learn from experience.
Going back to the idea of succession planning, you're stepping into your role. You have a little more runway in your career, and that's part of the logic of you being in the CEO role, where John and Brian are perhaps later on in their career. I'm just want to make sure I got that right.
Yes.
What is your plan for replacing them at a certain point? Because obviously, if John's running the ops, right, at some point, if he retires, you're going to need someone to run the ops. Have you given a lot of thought to that?
A ton of thought. Yes. Thankfully, we have two excellent gentlemen that have been working with John for many, many years. And one right now is focusing on director of construction for New York, and one is focusing more on outside of New York. So working together with John, with me, with Brian, to see how those roles, and that was my biggest concern all along in succession, was we can find somebody who can do legal. We can find somebody who can do finance. I don't want to say we're replaceable, but learning that construction and understanding that. And even Brian and John and I were in the rooms with Shimizu. That was their biggest question, right?
Yes.
How are we going to keep this going? And so Tim Austin and Amy Monahan are two guys who are stepping into that role. We have other people who are amazing as well, but they're not looking for that.
Yes.
That's not what their future looks like for them.
Yep.
And we had a lot of conversations, a lot of talk, and just building on it. And that's part of me jumping into the CEO role in 2022 as opposed to 2028, where I don't have that time to take it all in and learn and continue to grow.
That's interesting. You made a very important point there, is that we may identify someone tremendously talented for a role, but they may not want it.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the stumbling blocks that many people come across in succession planning, particularly in family businesses, is the father wants something for the son or the daughter, and the son and the daughter are like, nah, that's not what I want. And so you have to have those difficult conversations.
Yes. And we have a few people who I think could have taken over director of estimating, director of construction, things of those roles as well over the years.
Yes.
As we were growing. And we've been talking about this for 10 years, right? And well, probably 20 of what comes next, because always looking forward. But some people are just happy in their roles. We have superintendents that never wanted to be a PM.
Yeah.
We have people who are happy, they love what they do, and they want to continue to do that and not take on extra headaches or more management of people, or, everybody has their strong suit. And I think if we try to put people in roles they don't belong in because it makes sense to us, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it's true. One of the other struggles that folks have with succession is that they have too many talented people. Let me tell you what I mean by that. There's one seat available, and let's say 2 or 3 potential candidates who could fill that seat. And as a company, I want to retain my talent. And what am I going to do with the 2 that don't get the gig, so to speak, when I promote someone into that role? Have you ever come across that? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think one thing that's been really helpful for us, I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but is hierarchy is not our main focus.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like I said, my door is always open. John's door, John can act as a superintendent on a job or director of operations. We're all hands on. And I think that this is changing, and it's something that I'm learning. Whereas the construction veterans, they're not looking for that as much. Whereas the newer generation is looking for a path to different titles, a path to different roles, more hierarchy, more structure. So
That's interesting.
we're in this kind of interesting position right now where what's worked for us in the past and what's got us here is not going to get us where we're going.
Yeah.
So we're just really thinking about how that looks for the future.
Okay, so take us, if you will, inside the boardroom, so to speak. What kind of questions are you asking as you probe this particular issue? Because it's very interesting. You would say the newer generation wants more hierarchy, which is interesting because, like, when we think of new generations, we don't always associate that with hierarchy. So how do you guys talk around these things? What kind of questions are you asking and answering?
That's a good question. It's coming to me in different ways, right? So I think having people say, you know, I'm ready for the next position. I want to move out of this position. I want to move on to the next position. I can't always just say, okay, here's your title.
Yeah.
You have to learn, you know, what that position entails. And I'm all about moving forward. I think every person who starts at an entry level position should have some sort of idea of where they want to go in 5 years, 10 years, things like that. But I think we've never been as good at kind of who do you report to? And because we all report to each other.
Yes.
And that's something that I think that structure is something we're working on. And Shimizu is obviously helping with that because they have it, right?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that, right? Because my impression of Japanese culture is it's more hierarchical and structured and ordered. So what kind of positive influence is that having on you guys?
Well, it's interesting. Finding their group in Atlanta is very culturally similar to their group in Tokyo, which is obviously a little different than, right, our group in New York. So we're learning from them, I think, a little bit of, okay, this is what's really working. And then I think they see from us a little bit of the flexibility that maybe will help with their issues of now people starting to move on from that job for life mentality.
Yes.
And maybe a little bit of flexibility will help in keeping people.
Yeah. Going to that job for life question, and this kind of dovetails back in with the family dynamic. How do you handle a situation where someone is not performing as they should? You've done your best to handle that, but they're no longer a fit for the business. I find a lot of family-oriented companies really struggle with this because they're kind of sometimes too slow to cut ties with people.
It is very hard. So when we started, we were lucky enough to not only work with joint venture with companies like Turner Construction, we still do joint ventures with Turner today. So seeing how they handled things was helpful for me, certainly. And working with their legal department in the beginning was very helpful for me coming out of law school and having that like instant coaching and guidance. When it comes to the people that we hired in the beginning and continue to, a lot of them were construction veterans from different companies, from Tishman, from Turner, from Structure Tone, from these big names. And they all brought to us ideas that we loved and ideas that we didn't love so much, right? Where we felt like, okay, we could do things better. But together, I think we built a real strong idea of culpability and just teamwork. And I find that the people who come in and they don't have that, they don't tend to want to be here. They tend to not want to be part of that team. And it doesn't, there's been a few through the years who wanted to rise to the top ahead of everybody else and didn't want to work together to commit to these goals and didn't feel like not doing their job was letting down their team. And they just didn't fit in well, and they moved on to somewhere else, somewhere where they maybe weren't seen as much. Everyone in a smaller company is seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So it's kind of the idea there of a culture both attracting and repelling people.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think you're right there.
Yeah. Now, what I'm curious about is, okay, so you have this client base. Earlier, you talked about how you've expanded your business because your clients are asking you to go places, right? Which is obviously tremendously encouraging in the sense that they wouldn't ask you to do that if you weren't doing good work for them. Now, as you've gone through this acquisition and there are different cultural dynamics that you're navigating, How does that impact the way that you interact with your clients? Does it change at all the relationship with your clients because of the acquisition and some of the cultural changes that you may be going through? Or are you maintaining your current culture in terms of how you face the customers?
Yeah, I don't think any of that changes,
Okay.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think the acquisition is only going to make us stronger and giving us more access to different technologies and things like that where we can bring that to our clients. But in terms of the leadership and the management and everything, that's the same. We're the same people showing up to do the same job. And we've been very lucky in our careers that we're building real relationships with not only with our clients, but with our subcontractors. And just by showing up, we'll do anything to get it done. We're not going to be that company that says, all right, yeah, we can get this done and then put a delay letter in on day one. Like, we're showing up honestly in the beginning and saying, you can't make that happen. Even if you don't like that, we just don't think that that's feasible. And it saves everybody money. It saves everybody time. And getting off to that right start is something that Shimizu wants to do as well. So it's not, I don't think there's a big culture shift. I think we're just appreciating some things that maybe we hadn't thought of.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team. Give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today.
So you've mentioned, and I appreciate this too, as a GC, you basically have 2 clients, right? You have the client, but also your subs are your clients. They're your customers, right?
Yeah.
To an extent. When you're working with your subs, I'm sure they tell you about their work with other GCs. And so let's phrase it this way. Let's say you're talking to a sub and the sub says, unlike GCX, this is what you guys do that I really like. What is it that you do that sets you apart from other GCs that makes subs want to work with you?
We're fair. Certainly, we want to find solutions together. We don't just say, go figure it out. We want to work together towards the end goal, and we want to get them paid. We want everybody to make money.
Yeah.
Right? We're not looking to cash in on the backs of the subcontractors. It's just not a sustainable business. And it doesn't even make sense because they're building it, and we become friendly with the owners and get to know the companies and really bring them into the fold. And we think long and hard about who is right for a project. And we try not to put somebody into a project that doesn't belong there just because of cost or because of, some other things. So we spend a lot of time with pre-qualification and learning about the different subs and their challenges and where they're hurting. And they can call me or John or Brian any day and say, I'm having trouble on this job. Come meet me there. And we'll be there.
Yeah.
And we'll be there with our PM and our super, and we'll try and find solutions together.
How do you plan on keeping that vibe? I mean, that's obviously, that's a deep vibe right there, that when the owners of the company, the senior leadership will come on site even. How do you plan on keeping that vibe as the company continues to grow?
Well, That's challenging, but also challenging from the subcontractor perspective, because a lot of the owners of the subcontractors grew up in the business with Brian and John.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they're at that point in their career too. So it's really just keeping that open line of communication. They all know Tim and Eamon and one of our senior PMs, John Learned, and just making sure that what happens in our minds, in our thoughts on how we treat subcontractors, is actually happening in the field, and knowing that it's happening, giving everybody that same understanding that if your sub's not going to show up for you on a Saturday because something didn't happen on Friday, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Right. So if you don't have those relationships, you just can't get to the finish line.
It's interesting because that's another layer you could say of succession planning for a general contractor, is not only the internal succession planning, but also the external succession planning in terms of the next generation of leadership, both in the GC and the sub, establishing relationships together so that those
Yes.
relationships can be perpetuated.
Absolutely. And also the New York market is changing so much. So going from mostly a union market to much more open shop, making those non-union connections took a while. And we were lucky enough to have a lot of work with related company at Hudson Yards, and they had a good pool of non-union subcontractors that they introduced us to. And we were able to start building those relationships. But, like you said, it's all about the relationships. If you don't have that, then I don't know what the point is.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And are you guys union or non-union?
So we are, as a GC, we are signed with the local 79 in our area, which is the laborers, the mason tenders.
Yeah.
And that's a recent thing that we joined with them after many years of using paymasters for all of our union work. But we do see the shift is tremendous.
Why is that happening? Why is that shift happening? Yeah.
Money, I would say.
Okay.
Right? Well, two things, honestly. So when I started 20 years ago, it was probably 30 to 40% difference in pricing. But the quality wasn't necessarily there. And the sophistication certainly wasn't there. And so the non-union companies are getting better. The price gap is definitely closing. We find union guys will beat non-union guys in pricing sometimes now, get some better pricing, especially from, some of the guys who know the building very well, working in the building. Sometimes the building itself says, the property managers, the landlords say, all right, you can go to a non-union for architecturals, but I still want the MEPS guys because they know my risers, they know my building.
Yep.
My engineer is going to sleep at night because they know that it's going to be taken care of. It's just ever changing. I don't know what the future looks like for it because it kind of ebbs and flows. The unions are strong in some areas in Midtown. They're stronger than, let's say, downtown. So we'll see what comes.
That's interesting. So going back to this idea of developing long-term relationships with clients, what is it that you guys do differently that other folks don't, so that, these large clients, people like Starbucks would say, hey guys, I want you to come with us and build with us in these new areas and those sorts of things? So
yeah, Starbucks is an interesting one. We actually have only done one project for them, but it was the Starbucks Reserve at the Empire State Building.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, cool. Very cool, right? And that was one that we have a very good relationship with the Empire and Empire State Realty Trust. And when they had a 3-floor trophy going into their space, they said, let's stick with Cross because we know they'll get it done. We know they'll show up. And we've started a lot of our projects just doing some maintenance or
interesting.
Let me help you with this because I'm here, and then grow and grow and grow. One of our biggest clients is Point 72, which is Steve Cohen, who now owns the Mets.
Yeah.
We did little, conference room into 2 offices at one location, and then a little bit here, a little bit there. And then we've built almost 400,000 square feet for them now at Hudson Yards. So it's really just growing little by little into those things and showing up when they call.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And not saying, I'll send somebody next week or I'll send somebody in 2 weeks. And the owner involvement, really just having, going into a presentation and saying, this is the team you're going to see. And then actually that's the team you're going to see. That's something that's different.
How do you prepare yourself to show up in those meetings? I mean, I know for me, if I was going into a room with some heavy hitters, I would have to mentally prepare, right? Because I have this sort of framework where, if you're going to be of benefit to your clients, you have to come to them as a peer, not as someone begging for work. Obviously, your idea about starting small is tremendous, and that's a great way to build relationships. But how do you prepare yourself to show up as a peer in a room when you're surrounded by, titans of business, so to speak?
It's interesting. I think, that's one of John's strengths for sure.
Uh-huh.
John was at Structure Tone, was the company he was at previously for many years. He was in these rooms as a young guy with leadership, but also with Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon and people who you're not expecting to run into
right.
on the street. Sure.
So like the double take as you come in the room, huh?
Exactly. So I think, part of it is really just showing up authentically.
Yes.
And not trying to pretend to be somebody you're not. That's really been the goal. Because you have to work with the guy sweeping the floor and the guy who's a gajillionaire who wants the work done at the same time. You have to be the same to both. So just showing up as yourself and being prepared, knowing the job, knowing what the schedule requires, knowing what the budget is and how to get to that budget. Those are all the things that make you seem authentic.
So as you've grown in your role, if you were to look back and you were, let's say you're having a cup of coffee with a young woman who's just getting into construction and she has ambitions and talent, hard work and dedication, what advice would you give her in terms of being that authentic person, but then growing into the role and being able to focus on achieving some of those goals?
I think one of the hardest things for me early on was taking things personally. I think it held me back from the real lesson, overthinking everything and thinking, people are looking at me like I almost imposter in the room, right?
Yeah.
And once I was able to let go of that and realize that as I was learning these lessons, I was holding on to it, whereas everybody else in the room had moved on. And I think really just looking at everything a little bit more objectively, and don't worry that you're the only female in the room. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I think that's a very wise piece of advice, right? So use this word imposter. And I think everyone feels that to a certain extent. And perhaps if you don't feel at some point that you're an imposter, maybe you're a sociopath. So how did you overcome that imposter? Was there a light bulb moment where you finally, because I know what you're saying, where we have these narratives that we play in our heads and they're not serving us. And then at some point, maybe something happens where I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm just not going to think and act that way anymore. Was it something like that? Or was it just a sort of progressive thing?
I think it was practice, lots of practice. And getting into these rooms where when I started, I was definitely piled under paper. I was not looking to network. I was not comfortable with it. And I was really overthinking things and, trying to find the absolute answer to everything instead of working through it and finding things that work and leaving behind things that didn't. And I think just growing up a bit, and seeing things through a different lens.
Yeah.
And mentoring young people, right? Seeing where I know that my life would have been easier if I had let go of things sooner.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's great. So how do you handle the crazy aspect of doing business in New York? Is it something that you vibe off of? Do you enjoy it? Or is it something that you got to get in and then get out? How do you handle that?
So I don't live in New York, which helps tremendously for me. I live about 30 miles from New York in the woods.
In the woods. Nice.
Not necessarily, but lots of trees.
Woodsy enough.
Woodsy enough. I live in a quiet lake community and I come home to my husband and my 6-year-old every day and I can take a break from it. But I spent time working in the city before law school. I was in the city for 5 or 6 years and then I decided to go back to law school. And I thought I'd work in New Jersey for a little bit and it did not work well for me.
Really?
It was interesting, not being able to just go outside and everything's happening. And we're right in the heart of Midtown. So it's busy. We're down at the Empire State Building. We're over at Grand Central. That I feed off of that energy.
Interesting.
But I don't necessarily go to the city on the weekends.
Yeah.
I stay home.
Interesting. So it's interesting because knowing yourself and sort of the rhythms of the way that you work can help you to structure and order your life in a way that's most beneficial to you and the people that you're working with.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who are living in New York or living in Hoboken or Jersey City and they're loving it and it really works for them. And then there's a bunch of us that just need the retreat to go and have the quiet.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if someone asked your team to describe your leadership in one sentence, what do you hope that they would say?
That's a tricky one, for sure. I think that
that's kind of a scary question. You know what I mean?
It's very scary. Yeah, who knows? I guess it depends on who we're talking to. I think that my team knows that I'm always pushing them to do better, to be better. but also I have their backs. I really value the people I work with. And I value even people who have decided to go to other companies. I see that as just a progression. And we have several people who have left and come back, wanted to see what was, if the grass was greener on the other side, and have made their way back to us. And not everybody would be welcome back, but for the most part. So I think everyone knows that. I hope everyone knows that I'm here, but I always want to push you to be the best version of yourself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you see yourself 15 years from now?
That's a good question. I really loved the M&A process. I thought it was so exciting. So, and, of course I took a couple classes in law school, but I was never really in the trenches before. So I'm excited to see where we're going with Shimizu and buying more companies and bringing more companies into the umbrella. Guess I'm certainly a lifer here at CMC. So I think I would love to, keep on going where I'm going. I see the company growing tremendously. I've gotten past my fear of the growth moving throughout the country. And I am a risk adverse person, but I'm starting to see the benefits here and let myself think a little bit bigger. So I'm excited to be involved in the strategy of building CMC, but also building it through acquisition and seeing where we can streamline things and work with, the attorneys differently and the financial firms maybe a little bit differently, just to make us all just a bigger family.
Awesome. So tell us just a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you, how they can learn more about what CMC is doing and even Shimizu.
Sure. I mean, our website is a great place to start. It's crossmanagementcorp.com. I'm on LinkedIn, of course, and I can give you my information, my card that I don't have.
Yeah. Well, we have the links.
That's in my luggage for next trip to Tokyo.
Yeah. We'll put the links in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you there on your LinkedIn
Wonderful.
as well. Okay, so I have a couple more questions here. Now,
Sure.
If I'm in New York, and I've never been to New York, right? New York City.
You have to come.
No, I know. So what is the one site I have to see in New York?
That's a hard one.
I know.
There's so many things to see in New York. Honestly, the newest, coolest little area right now, it's a little controversial, is Hudson Yards. It's just beautiful.
Yep.
It's quiet and it's really, really beautiful. But of course, you have to go to Central Park and you have to go to the Empire State Building. The seaport's amazing. That's a really tricky one.
Yep. Okay. Well, let me ask you this way then. What's the one place that's overhyped and not worth going to?
Times Square.
Okay.
That's an easy question.
Okay. All right. So then I have one more question. What's the one restaurant that I've got to hit if I'm in, Midtown or downtown or however you want to phrase that?
Wow.
I know that's an even tougher question, maybe.
That's impossible.
Yeah.
There's a
Where
new
do
one
you
over
go? Where do you go?
Well, a lot of my clients are in like the Rockefeller area. So I love this Greek place called Avra. There's a couple locations. So good. If you're going to find construction people, you're going to Benjamin's or you're going to Valbella, right in Midtown. There's so many great restaurants, though. It's impossible to find them all. That's
great. So we will put links in the show notes to those restaurants as well, just in case people want to hit them up the next time they're in New York. That's awesome. Well, it's been tremendously insightful talking with you, Anne. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is great. Fabulous.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the interview today with Anne. I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with other people and give the show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want a killer book, don't forget Construction Genius. Go out to Amazon. $20. Great book. I know you'll benefit from it. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.